You're listening to the Wired for Impact podcast.
Welcome back, the lovely Dimple Thakrar, to the podcast. This is your second episode, I believe. Second or third? Gosh, it's been, we've known each, is it third? I think it's third, yeah. So welcome back.
Thank you, Peter. What a gift to be back. I just love riffing with you and just having like the best time. So thank you.
It's been awesome getting to know you better over the years. We met way back when during a Tony Robbins stint that we were both doing. And then we've kind of continued to cross paths over the years. And it's been awesome to see the journey that you've been on and the queendom that you've been creating with your relationship podcast and the work that you're doing there. It's really, really been inspiring to watch.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Well, you inspired me because I had this whole limiting belief that I was only good at being a guest on podcasts, or I would go guest on everybody's podcast. And so birthing my own podcast has literally been 5 years in the procrastination.
It took me a few years too before I had to finally dive in. Well, you have the voice for it. You have the voice of a host for sure that people want to listen to and are attracted to. So I'm glad you're doing that. It's called Beyond the Words for those that are interested. And you're a few episodes in now, but I know you have several in the log too. So
yes. We just launched our 14th episode, and my producer announced last week that it was ranking in the top 10% globally. So
amazing. Amazing. Wow. Congratulations. That's beautiful. I wanted to spend a decent amount of time talking to you today about polarity in relationships, because I think, and I believe that you share this sentiment, that relationships really are the place for the greatest joy in one's life. But I think in our society right now, we're finding out that relationships are not just the place for this most significant amount of personal pain and frustration and incongruity, but how that's affecting the entire society. And so I feel that healed relationships heal society and uplift society. And so I think it's something that's so important that we don't really know what a clear, healthy relationship looks like. And I always ask my relationship guests on the podcast what that is. Can we continue to bring that into further clarity so that people have a real sense of what we're aiming towards? And there's a lot of disagreement and or confusion or misunderstandings about what a healthy relationship looks like. And to me, the polarity is something that helps get us closer to a symbiotic, complementary relationship, as opposed to one that feels right now, at least societally, as more adversarial or victim blaming, or, you need to be doing this, or I can't find a good man, or all the women are this. It's like there's no winning in that. You know what I mean? I think my first question to you is, can you first and foremost explain what polarity is so that we're clear on what that is and we can take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic conversation and topic. And it's my favorite thing. So I just love to speak about it. Polarity is something that I discovered through pain, actually. And what that is that we all have masculine and feminine energies within us. And so it's not that men only have masculine, women only have feminine. I have masculine and feminine energy in me. My husband has masculine and feminine energy in him. Our relationship, our marriage broke down when we were out of balance within our own masculine and feminine energy. So, for example, I was operating at around 80% masculine, 20% feminine. Now, the numbers are arbitrary. It's just to illustrate the point. As a result, that impacted him and his masculine and feminine balance, because he was trying to keep polarity. So what that means is masculine and feminine energy attracts. It's like a magnet. So there's polarity there. So you pull each other together. That creates the intimacy, the passion, the deep connection. So then if I am out of balance, it knocks his balance and vice versa. So we end up depolarizing each other. I.e., if I'm in my masculine, inauthentic, and he's in his authentic masculine. We've got masculine on masculine that will repel each other like a magnet would, like positive on positive or negative on negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so really polarity is about when I'm in my authentic feminine balance. So it's about 70% feminine for me, about 30% masculine, and everybody's is different. That polarizes his authentic balance in him. And also he has to do the work on maintaining his authentic balance. Mm-hmm. So he's more masculine than he is feminine, which is why we're an ideal match, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. The problems occur when you're firstly out of balance yourself and secondly out of balance in the relationship.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You explained that perfectly. I think the challenge that a lot of people find, I personally went through this when you start to have a family. I think initial attraction, especially when you're young, you tend to be more in that center of energy that is consistent with your identity. And then you all of a sudden start having the stress of building a family and building a life and having bills to pay, but specifically around childbearing or childbirthing. I have found has been a significant shift in so many relationships because a woman naturally goes into a masculine energy to lead her children, to prepare and plan for them, to create schedules, to protect them. And the men in that same time, I remember watching my then wife go through childbirth, and you're helpless. You have to go into a feminine energy. You can't do it for her. So you go into a very supporting, nurturing, what can I get for you? Are you uncomfortable? How can I do this? And without knowing it, I've seen couples, I did this myself, where you just sort of years go on and you go into a depolarization where the man is looking to nurture and what do you need and what do you want to eat and where do you want to go? And they're letting her lead and she's more in her masculine. For those that may be just coming online and realizing that maybe they're in a depolarized relationship, how do you repolarize?
Yeah, it's a really profound question. The first piece is acknowledging where you're at. Motherhood and mothering is a really masculine energy, right? And particularly if you're, certainly for me, married to a serial entrepreneur who, as soon as the babies were born, the pressure for him to go and earn and provide got 100x because he had 2 mouths to feed, right? Or the alternative, if you are very much nurturing and like you've described. So what I have come to realize is in my relationship and my marriage of 28 years now, and we've been together 33, is that, and this is an ongoing process, by the way, and you're absolutely right. I have found whenever there's a profound change in a relationship, it can flick the switch and it can cause depolarization. So that often is children. That's often relocating or a new house. It's something big, right? Mm-hmm. And what I've come to realize is that for a woman, if she's in fear a lot of the time, she will go into her protector mode because she doesn't feel she's protected, because the man has gone into his feminine and that's not protector mode. So the key, I believe, is that if she can settle into feeling safe and he can settle into leading, even when it's uncomfortable and even when she's confused and doesn't receive it in the way that he intends, if he can hold the storm, she's going to settle even more into her feminine. But he has to be able to hold the storm and know that it's not personal to him, because it really is not. She's having a battle with herself. She may not be aware of it. It may not sound like it. But until he holds that storm, she can't do anything but protect herself because she feels unsafe.
Let's zoom into that for a little bit, because I know that this is oftentimes the pivot point for relationships where she's experiencing a storm and his capacity to stand in it and lead her through that is paramount. And oftentimes, and you just said it's helpful if he doesn't take it personally. On the other hand, when the storm is aimed at you
Yes.
and it's you're the reason why. And
Yes.
this is it's hard to
So hard.
navigate that. So help us out. What for somebody that's for in those critical moments, what does standing in the storm and leading her through the storm look and sound like to you?
A beautiful question. And firstly, I want to honor all you men that have really, really experienced the storm. It's not a great place. It really is not a great place. And it is extremely difficult. I have no idea how you do it. Honestly, no idea. And I also know that it's also the gift of expansion. If you can hold that storm, you grow massively. And that is the reason Mother Nature provides it for you. Right. So that's the first key, understanding that this is an opportunity for you to grow, not an opportunity for you to get taken by the storm. Right. And then the second piece is a technique that I often use with my male clients is, can you witness her as a little girl? Can you see her? If you have a daughter, can you see her as a little girl? What would you do? And I'm not saying you treat her like a child, but I'm just saying, what is the feeling that happens when you see that this little girl is frightened? She's terrified. And she doesn't even know what she's frightened of. Can you witness her in that moment and disregard everything, the verbal diarrhea that's being flung at you? Because in her mind, she's going, I really don't mean this. I'm so sorry. Like it is such turmoil for a woman, particularly when our hormones are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making excuses. We do have to do the work. I have to manage my storm. And there are times when I can't because I'm so hormonal. But with the storm and the higher the storm, the equal amount of passion that woman can hold.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're enjoying that level of passion and charisma and sex appeal and gorgeousness, then this is just another aspect of her full rainbow of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there a time when the boundary gets crossed where he may need to say, look, I understand you're feeling this and this is your storm, etc., but this is not the consistency of this or the frequency, the intensity of it is not serving me? When should a man say,
enough,
this is dysfunctional and this is not serving me and it's not respect to stay in this is disrespectful to myself?
Yes. So this is a really good, brilliant question. And what I have come to learn is that it's never at the time in the storm. And I'll tell you why. She's not receptive. It will create more of a storm. You are dealing with a child in that moment. You cannot reason in that moment. And this is why I really recommend that you have what I call love meetings in the marriage, where you sit down, where you're both calm and collected, and you sit down and you discuss what your boundaries are. And in that moment, you discuss that, look, when this sort of behavior happens and you disassociate it from the woman, you don't say, when you are like this, the language is really important. When this behavior happens, it makes me feel like this, and that isn't healthy for me or us. So as a man, I want to protect us. So in that moment, I am going to walk away, or I am going to just do something to take care of me and whatever that is. And I'll be back. Because the last thing you want to do is leave her in the storm. And you go and take a moment, take a breath. Right? Or there's another technique that I use is where we use a code word. So I have said to him, my code word is yellow flowers. And it has to be a word that is completely arbitrary, that doesn't trigger you, right? Mm-hmm. I like yellow flowers. I like sunflowers, right? So when he says that, that's a code for me to know that I'm triggered, for me to know that you're in this storm right now because I'm not even aware of it. Right?
Explain that. How do you not know when you're coming at him and he's the source of all your pain?
I am aware that he's the source of all evil in that moment.
Right.
I am, oh no, and it's super clarification. Thank you. I am unable to stop the momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a pattern interrupt, and I need one that we both agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, it's code red.
That you say to him?
Yeah. When he's in his trauma.
So when you're in the storm and the energy's coming in and it's expelling, he stops and says yellow flowers to you.
Yeah.
Correct? What does that do for you? Like literally walk us through emotionally, mentally, what happens for you in that moment?
What happens for me in that moment is I go, oh, hold on. And I literally go, I just take a moment because it stops me dead because we have discussed what that means. What that means is he's identified I'm on that high-speed train to self-destruct, right? And I have explained to him that when that happens, that he should ignore everything I'm saying and doing and just ask me, what do I need? So he pattern interrupts. He asks me what I need. And in that moment, I can say, I need a hug. I need you to just listen to this garbage. It's not about you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have discussed what our blueprint is, but we discussed it when we were both in a neutral state.
Yes. Sober, not influenced by
right?
biochemicals.
And can I say we get it right every time? No, we don't. No, we don't. But it reduces the number of storms and it reduces the length of time that those take. And on the flip side, it reduces the number of times he loses his temper and shouts and me feeling unsafe.
I was just going to ask, you just answered the question I was about to ask you, but there's a part of it that I want to ask you too, which is I think people in relationships, neither side likes to deal with the code red or the yellow flower moments, you know? And I think that there is this subconscious or unspoken expectation that at some point in the future, we're not going to be dealing with this anymore, that these will eventually go, we'll grow out of this. Garbage, rubbish. Okay. So explain how this is still part of the quote unquote healthy, the fuller picture of a healthy dynamic between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, it expands the man. He gets to grow because the more he practices navigating the storm, the less the storm occurs and the more he gets to be her hero. Like when my man has rescued me from my storm, by the way, it's not his.
Mm-hmm.
I am literally melting in his arms because I feel so safe and I get to then discuss my trigger with him. I get to apologize. I get to actually say, do you know what, babe? Help me through this. What do you think it is that's causing this for me? And I get to talk that through with him. That creates such a deep healing connection, right? Because he then gets to understand, like a lot of my triggers were due to my childhood traumas through my relationship with my father. And it was only through him holding me and allowing me to shudder in that storm, because that's what I needed. I needed to feel protected physically, right? So for him holding me and me shuddering and sobbing, and he got to be that strong man to hold me through that. And coming through it, I then got the intuition and the downloads that this wasn't mine. It was an old thing from a little girl. And I get to talk that out with him and I get to apologize to him for me making it about him. I get to say to him, what are the things that actually trigger me? His tonality, him ignoring me, my perception of him ignoring
Mm-hmm. I want to acknowledge the humility and the maturity that it takes for a woman to, after the storm is over, come back and express. I want to acknowledge how meaningful that is from the man's side, because the storm, men feel called to handle the storm, and there's something very masculine about, especially I've been through those moments where the storm comes and you feel very anchored, and you see the storm, the energy dissipate, and then you see the calm waters come back, and you're still fully anchored, fully present, created, perhaps sometimes some firm boundaries, but with love, and reminding that this is out of love. And for a woman to then at some point after that come back and say exactly what you were just saying, hey, this was unresolved trauma. Where do you think this was coming from? Support me through this. I'm sorry. Like, that is so meaningful for a man, because it's like, I can deal with any storm if you just acknowledge that sometimes it's a lot to deal with. I think a lot of women expect that. You hear the superficial, well, if you can't handle me at my worst, then you don't get me at my best. And there's this energy of like, there's no appreciation for it. So I just want to acknowledge that that's so healing for a man to acknowledge that it's a lot to deal with, because you love that person and they're coming at you. And it's the last person that you want to not feel like an adversary, It's tough. It's really tough.
And that really landed for me again, Peter. You've said it to me before, and it's landed again at a different level for me. That piece on appreciation, right?
Mm-hmm,
And that piece, you can manage anything as long as you're acknowledged and appreciated, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. It's how we repair and heal. It's
so needed for men, because it's so rare these days. And to come from the person that you feel like you're asserting all that energy and love towards, to have that be reciprocated with, hey, I know it's a lot for you to handle this, to carry this, to thank you for bringing us back to congruence and back to polarity, et cetera, makes it all worth it. Makes it all like, I can handle anything, know?
And I have actually said a few times to my man when he's handled me through the storms, because there's a lot of healing that I've had to go through and will continue to. Mm-hmm. I've actually said to him, thank you. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for being that strong man and withstanding that. That isn't easy. And what I said was wrong. And I was wrong to say it. And I really acknowledge the fact that you still stuck by me. Right? You still stuck by me. And I can't guarantee that it won't happen again, but what I can guarantee is that I will do my best to heal these parts of me now that I know that they're present.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, that level of acknowledgement and vulnerability and transparency and honesty and humility, I think some women think that if they divulge that they are admitting that they're imperfect, that they're broken, that they're traumatized, that they're not worthy of love. And I just want to continue to reiterate how it's the exact opposite. If you can come to the table and share that with that level of vulnerability that I was talking about, and humility and love, it actually calls the masculine. It actually pulls us in to say, oh, thank you. Like, you're appreciating that this is tough, that this is difficult to navigate. Yes. Because otherwise it goes completely unacknowledged. And oftentimes it's like expected it is the bare minimum, as opposed to no. This is the biggest value you're bringing to the table. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I have to say, ladies, when you step up with this level of vulnerability, oh my frigging God, does your man suddenly become so fucking hot as shit? Like,
tell me about that.
The sexiest man on the planet, like.
Okay, so when we met, and the critical moment, we talked about this in previous podcasts, but just to bring listeners up to speed, You had quite a very interesting moment with Tony Robbins, who, if anybody knows who Tony Robbins is, he's 6'7", barrel chested. I often describe him as a lion amongst lions. Like, he is a big, massive energy and human being and man. And you made a comment live in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people that was inadvertently disrespectful to your husband. And Tony at the time was in the back of the room, and he comes storming down the aisle, and he laid into you like I've not seen him lay into most. I mean, I've seen it a couple times, but he brought it at you hard. Anyway, that was a very pivotal point, and you can go back and listen to our previous podcast to hear the whole story. But tell me how that changed you, and then to what you were just saying before, how that called the masculine, the fuller masculine out of your husband to the point where you were repolarized. And you use the word hot. That's not a word that you typically hear in marriages that are decades old. So let's walk us through how that came, because you weren't there. You were in, as you described it, in male bashing mode.
Yeah.
Right. So that shifted you. So walk us through what happened to you emotionally and psychologically, and then how your husband then repolarized with that.
It was so beautiful because it would appear like Tony was attacking me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It would appear that way. He wasn't. I felt completely safe because I felt his integrity. But from the outside looking in, like, people had stopped breathing. It was that intense in the room. Right? And within 2 minutes, my beautiful man came from nowhere with his chest out, ready to take Tony Robbins down, right? Because nobody speaks to his woman like that. And it's acts like that that meant that I didn't have to be in my masculine, because I was protecting myself. But he was here to protect me, right? And then there were moments in that intervention where I was on my hands and knees, holding my beautiful husband's hand. He was stood above me, and I was begging for forgiveness. And he knelt down and was eye to eye with me. And he said, I can't stand over you. We're equal. Right? It's moments like that that reminded me why I married him. Because that allowed me to drop into my femininity and my vulnerability and my ability to say, I'm just scared, babe. I'm so tired of wearing the trousers, of having the balls. And we literally, energetically, I handed back his balls in that moment. And that's why then I was attracted to him. Because up until then, I'd demasculated him and he'd allowed that. Right? It's a two-way street. It isn't that. And he asked me for his forgiveness. So it's not that I was dishonoring myself or women. It was more that I was stepping up as a woman, not needing to be a man.
It's amazing to me how the answers are right in front of us. We're all, I'm single, so I'm in different relationships groups, and so many men and women there's no good men, there's no good women. I'm done with men, I'm done with women. And it's like, nobody's shifting. I should say, we're starting to see shifts. I think cultural, societally, at a macro level, the collective level, we're starting to see some pretty significant shifts. I'm starting to see women say the things that you're talking about. Oh my God, I didn't realize how much I was emasculating my boyfriends or husband or even son, or father, brother. It's like that energy is not just, you're not just holding that for your significant other. It goes to all men. And I'm starting to see men step into their masculine duty, quite frankly, and not take shit, but do it in a way that is not angry and not, it's like what you're talking about right now, to stand in the storm and to be able to realize, oh, I'm dealing with somebody who's been traumatized. I'm dealing with somebody who hasn't been safe. I'm dealing with somebody who has been abused physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally. And that person needs TLC, a lot of it. And there's going to be times where that's going to bleed out. And I think collectively, we need to recognize that I had this concept that came to me a little while ago. You know how we have all these movements, the Me Too movements or this, that, or whatever. And a lot of these are focused on the problems, which we need to do that to some degree. But this goes back to my original intention of this conversation is like, what is the vision? What is the goal? Where are we heading towards? I think it would be awesome if we started a movement called #GrowTogether. An acknowledgement that, oh, we're both hurt. If you were to look at the collective and you have 1 million women over here and 1 million men and everybody's dissatisfied, everybody's hurt. So there needs to be an acknowledgement that there isn't this like perfect, healthy man or woman out there that's just that you're going to slide into their life, even though you're wounded and traumatized and have all of your shit. And they're going to just lovingly appreciate and take you in. No, we need to acknowledge that we need to grow together and to find that common ground and then elevate together. And everything that you're saying in this conversation is that you did exactly that. You and your husband grew together. That's the other thing I love about your leadership is that you continue to say, this is tough. There's times where I'm still not doing it. The authenticity is very, very healthy, in my opinion, and very, very attractive because I think a lot of people are going, there's other gurus out there that show themselves as these perfect, gems. And I don't know that that's entirely true.
And it may well be. It may well be. I'm not going to stand in judgment for them, but I'm just being honest with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that marriages, relationships, especially, when you're in your third decade, I believe that they're cyclic. It's like the seasons. There's winter, there's spring, there's summer, fall or autumn, and then it's cyclic. Grow. There's a reason nature has seasons because we have to grow through them each time.
What are some of the other maxims or principles that would be helpful for somebody who's wanting to reinvent their relationship, either with somebody that they've been with for a long time, or maybe the same type of person that they keep attracting and they're wanting to elevate? What are some of the things that they can do? We talked a little bit about like communication. You gave the example of it's not you that's doing it, it's this behavior, which to me goes into a maxim that I try to bring into my relationships, which is it's us against the problem. You're not the problem. It's us arm in arm on both sides on this table.
Yes.
Yep. And on the other side is the problem. And so using language, I think, to say, and it's not you, it's this behavior or it's this trigger and now we can work together. What are some other principles or maxims that you can share if I could put you on the spot that would be helpful for people that are looking to reinvent and repolarize?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And it's so essential. One of the things that I would say that, and we haven't been great at it up until now, is being intentional and consistent. So intentional with your relationship. So actually putting time and intentionality and effort, right? And then the second piece is consistently. So what that will look like is something like doing daily blessings, for example. So that's spending 5 minutes with each other, eye gazing, and speaking into what you appreciate about them. It can be just a minute each, right? Intentionality, having intentional fun time. Because especially when you've been married as long as I have, you get into a rut of speaking about the children, work, the house, the jobs, fun time, doing fun stuff, right? Having a list of fun things that you want to do together. And then the other pieces as well is really talking about intimacy and how you want to express that. And because it changes as your body changes and as you evolve, right? So having that open dialogue that doesn't mean that what's happening is wrong, but having the mindset that you want to both of you constantly grow. and not settle for mediocre. It's having those rules. And, the other piece that I often recommend is business meetings or love meetings. Once a week, you sit down and you take care of business. You actually talk about what's working for you, what's not. Judgment free.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's different to a date night. Different to a date night. The intention and purpose is very different. One's taking care of business. The other's focus is fun, intimacy, passion, connection.
Mm-hmm. Having known you now for a few years, it's been cool to see you evolve as a woman. And if I may, this is probably not very kosher, I guess, if you want to call it that, but you've allowed your hair to go gray, silver, actually. And I just want to acknowledge you because you still have that feminine vibe. You're looking younger. And I mean this sincerely, like, because of, and I'm pointing this out. And for those that are able to, most people hear my podcast, I'm starting to put it out on YouTube and also on Rumble, just so that you can see, Dimple, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is that you're maintaining your youthful spirit. And that is very attractive to men, that energetically the energy is youthful, the fun, the vivaciousness, the radiance. And the other thing that I think is very attractive is the authenticity of the life stage. There's so many women that are trying to nip and tuck and all that kind of stuff, which I have no judgment on that either. I get it. Yeah. So long as the inside is still, it's not feeling empty, and you're thinking that the outside is going to solve the empty problems on the inside. If that's what you're doing, then men can feel that. But if you're maintaining yourself in whatever way you feel called to, but you still have that youthful, authentic energy on the inside, then the radiance and the attractiveness, I think, can stay. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I know a lot of women feel that's difficult, that they're losing their beauty, or that they're using their youth. But I think there's a way for women to maintain that. And to me, the word is grace. Like, there's a level of grace that a woman matures into that stands the test of time. It's timeless. And it's really cool to see you do that, because it's more rare these days. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And for those that are listening, please go check out the YouTube or the Rumble, because you'll see what I'm talking about.
Thank you. I received that fully, because it's been work.
The reason why I'm bringing that up is because we're talking about polarity and youthful energy, and youthful presentation is meaningful for men. And to your point, it takes work. Can you talk a little bit about what that is for you, how you've done it, how you've maintained that, both physically, but also energetically and emotionally?
Yeah. That has been a journey. The energetically, emotionally, physically, 3 elements has been a journey. And it started with intentionality. It started with, and it happened, I would say, Peter, in my sort of 49th stroke 50th year, when I decided that actually it was about time I started to love on me more than I loved on anybody else. It was about time I started to take care of me. Right. And I claimed that. It's quite the opposite to what people think and what I thought. And it's interesting. I did a reel just the other day, and I was making a meal, and this meal was a full-on Indian meal. So it requires some effort. And this is a meal that I would normally make for my family or my husband. And at the moment, my husband's away. My children have now left the house. They don't live with us anymore. And so I'm making this meal in such joy and bliss. And I suddenly had this moment of realization that in the 50 years I've been on this planet, I have never made such an elaborate meal for me. Just for me.
Interesting.
Right? I'd spent years of service that I would never change again, ever, for my children, for others, for my work. All my work has always been, how can I serve people in every way, shape, and form? And I would take care of myself. I'd go to the gym, I'd do all the things, but I'd do it from a place of wanting to maintain a physical persona. which is very different to the frequency that I hold now, which is inside out, not outside in. So now it's all about, how can I love on me more? How can I do the things that I do for everybody else, but do it for me? Right? So, like, I was at my sister's house the other day and she has a trampoline, and I just wanted to jump on the trampoline in the rain. Why not? Right? She has two boys that are 12 and 10, and they're out there looking at their auntie in her pink, like, rain mat, jumping on the trampoline. Right?
That's awesome.
And I do want to stop myself from doing all these fun things. So, in answer to your question, I've really tapped into what I want, and then I do it unapologetically, and I don't put an age range on it. Like, I just do it, and I don't want to hide anymore, which is why I let my hair go. For 20 years, I've been this grey and dyeing it. And I don't want to anymore. This is who I am. And if I've reached a point where if you can't love me for who I am, I'm really okay with that. I still love you. I still love you. I don't need you to like me. And I think that's the key. That's the key, as I'm thinking it through. I've got to a point where I don't need you to like me, because I like me.
Yeah, you can tell.
I think that's what's the usefulness and the attractiveness now, because I get stopped everywhere. Like, what is it about you? And I honestly, literally say, I love me. I appreciate you for noticing. Thank you.
I love that. You mentioned intimacy a little bit earlier, and we are on the conversation of polarity. These things tend to spill over into the bedroom, into the intimacy space. You talked about seasons, the cycles of life and the seasons of life. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep the intimacy polarized so the attraction and the chemistry is still there?
It starts out of the bedroom. I have to be super honest with what I want. I haven't been in the past. So I've gone along with things and then resented him or regretted it. Not anything that is hurting me or in any way, shape, or form. I've 100% resented. But I've got clear on what I want, and I've become courageous to ask and say. And my no, my sacred no is just as powerful as my sacred yes. So we've discussed and said, do you fancy this? Do you fancy it? And we're trying to keep new things, and not only new things, but we're deepening the connection on a spiritual level. So it's out to the bedroom. We meditate together. We go walks together. We have deep philosophical conversations together. He gets to hold me at my vulnerablest. That for me is intimacy, right? And there are moments when I just don't feel like it. And I'm able to say, babe, I'm not feeling it right now. My body is not feeling it right now. Can we just cuddle? Can we just? And I appreciate your needs as well. And I'm okay for you to take care of your needs, right? If that feels good for you. But I, right in this moment, need to honor what's going on for my body. You know, and sometimes that's a hard pill for him to swallow. And sometimes he really respects me for that. And either or is okay. I don't judge him for either or. There's that freedom, right? So it's a whole different level of intimacy. It's not just, and we still have the play and the fun and the crazy, right? Yeah. And it's even more fun now because there's no kids in the house. So.
Right. Keeps it interesting. You know, one of the things that I always find so interesting is that we tend to give the very thing that we want, and how when you're in polarization, it's often the opposite of what we want. So for example, you often hear, and I'm talking specifically about intimacy, you often hear from women, you know, oh, that feels really good. Keep doing that. That's what will get me over the edge. That's what will have me orgasm. and this is the word, consistency. But I think oftentimes what men experience is what we experience on our end is the variety is appealing, is attractive, because our whole world is linear and logical and everything makes sense and rational. It's the irrational, the storm. Like, how the fuck are you crazy right now? It's beautiful outside. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And yes, at times it's frustrating, but in other times we love it because it's so illogical. You're not contained by the boundary of logic. You have the freedom to just fucking feel whatever you want. And it's like, how do you do that? You have to have a reason for that. No, we don't. I just get to feel this way. And yet at the same time, that is attractive. And so anyway, so men get to sort of orgasmville through the variety and through the differences. And so I think sometimes when men are pleasing their women and she's starting to, get more excited and she's like, keep doing that, men are kind of like, no. And anyway, what I'm trying to get at is like, it's the consistency that we bring to the table, obviously not just in the bedroom, but like also with our jobs, with our provision, et cetera, the consistency to show up. But for the woman, it's the variety. And I share this because I think that this is something that couples can bring into their relationships, for women to recognize that you are so many different shades to us because you show up. It's like, it's I think women sometimes get insecure because they think, oh, they're going to get tired with me and he's going to want to spread his seed somewhere else or whatever. And what I want to encourage women is, with my message, is you are those many shades. You are those many different, people to us. And truthfully, like Tony Robbins, going back to some of the Tony Robbins stuff, he and his wife have names for each other, and then different names for different sort of personalities that they show up in. And, one of his wives is, the businesswoman, and she's, take charge. She gets shit done. Other times she's a little girl and she needs, a hug and whatever. And then other times it's the sexy seductress. I love that idea of identifying these different needs, especially for men. And so for women to know that they can show up in all these different ways. And it's almost like you're with many different women. It's meeting the need of the variety is what I'm ultimately getting at. That was a little soapbox thing, but I'm curious, do you have any other advice or tips for people who are looking to reinvent the intimacy and bring more polarization? You explained some before. Do you have any other ones that?
Yeah, absolutely. Variety, you're 100% talking about the variety, spontaneity, plan it and also don't. So it's, which makes no logical sense, right?
Yes.
But you can plan it and also don't, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have names for all the different personas that I can be. Absolutely. Because then it not only does the name help the man, but it also helps the woman to get in that persona. And it gives her permission to be in that persona, right? And to actually role play that persona in clothes, in hair, in makeup, in all of that. And then the other piece I would say is, particularly for me as I've matured, is that start much sooner with the foreplay. So like the gentle touches in the day, the gentle kisses in the day, this whole build up, this momentum, this teasing, this excitement will create such magnetism, right? Just that paying attention, intentionality to what she needs before she asks for it. Oh, that's another one, a key one. Oh my God. If you can lead in romance, that's the game changer. What does that mean? It means don't ask her where you want to eat or what she wants to eat or has she taken care of childcare. Take care of it all. Take care of it all. Decide what she's wearing. Know that it's something that she'll be comfortable in, right? Just like let her know this is what time, but do it in a way that you know that, like, I know I don't like to eat dinner at 8:30 at night, right? If he's going to book a table at 8:30 at night, it's just not going to work. I'm going to be hungry as hell at that point. Right? I like to have drinks at 5:00, have dinner at 6. Know your woman. Just know your woman.
that's a key part, because I know a lot of men get frustrated at that advice to lead, because then they lead and then she's rolling her eyes, or she gets hangry, or something happens, and it's like, well, this isn't working. You have to, there's a key component where you have to really know what actually works for her. And so it's going to take some time, but go ahead. This is helpful. What does that do for you when he takes that leadership?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I can relax like there is, even thinking about it makes my body go, oh, hey, baby, just take me. Just take me. Because you have just allowed me to not have to make decisions. You've allowed me to rest. You've allowed me to be the woman I am. Like, even when we're driving to wherever we're going, and if he puts a song on that he know I absolutely love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he'll put it on dead like cool while he's driving. Like he's not really thought about, like, dead cool, right? And then he'll keep looking forward, and I'll look at him and smile, and I'll see that half smirk that comes up. And it's just those little details.
Yeah. He's no dummy.
To feed the world, right?
Yeah.
Or he'll take me to something a new experience that I've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
And be really thoughtful with making sure he knows where the parking is, and all, just the detail, and nice and slow, right? The slower you can do it, the faster you'll get there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The slower you can do it. And head first. Don't start touching your nether regions first. Head first.
Mm-hmm.
Work down, not up.
Yes. Good. That's good advice. You said a second ago that when he's making decisions, it allows you to rest. I want to get into the nuance of that for half a second. I know we're getting sort of close on time, but for a lot of men, rest is like downtime. It's like, I want to forget about everything. So I'm wanting you to explain why rest for you actually is invigorating and leads to intimacy. Why is that from a woman's perspective?
Because when a woman is not resting, she's tense. Her muscles are tight. She's holding what feels like the world, everything. Mm-hmm. Because she's in a masculine, and it's not natural for us to stay in our masculine for that long. Mm-hmm. So resting means she can release the masculine. It means that she can drop into her feminine. It means her face will soften. It means her physical body tissue, her muscles will soften. So this is when you notice the difference between a woman who has a resting bitch face, I like to call it, stern face, right? Where there's tension, like that, real tension in her face, in her jawline, it's chiseled. As opposed to a woman who's relaxed, which is her face drops. It literally drops, and the muscle softens. And that's what's attractive, right? That's what causes the polarization that I'm assuming. I'm checking.
100%. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Right?
Yep.
So that's what I mean by relax. She gets to breathe. Oh, okay. I'm taken care of here. He knows what he's doing. I can trust him. And if I can trust him, I feel safe. And if I feel safe, I can let my guard down. I can be that wild woman because it's safe. It's safe for me to relax. It's safe for my body to relax.
Safety is such an important word for the feminine psyche. And I used to think that it meant physical safety, but there's so much more that I think men are missing, because a lot of men, I think their rational, logical mind is, oh, I will, walk on the street side while we're walking, or I'll have my back to the wall so I can see, if there's any threats coming. They're thinking physical space and safety, which is important. That's necessary. However, there's a whole other world of emotional safety that I don't know that many men have really stepped into fully yet. So you're really talking about the things, the thoughtfulness, the taking care of the plans so that you don't have to think about those things, is providing mental, emotional relaxation and therefore safety on your part. Very, very key element. Thank you for sharing that.
And the other one last thing, chivalry. Opening the damn door for her. Like, just open the car door for her and wait for her to get in. Because the slower a woman moves, the more she's in her feminine. Don't rush her. Enjoy her movements. Notice her movements. When you notice her movements, she will feel your masculinity. It will be the biggest turn on for her. The biggest. Like, open the door for her. Allow her to get in. Gently close the door. Slow it right down, right?
I love that. This feels like a good place to pause until our next conversation. So we will do that. You have really expanded what you've been doing. You are at dimpleglobal.com. Your website looks amazing, by the way. Absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. The 2 programs that you have that you're offering right now, if you could share briefly what those are about.
Oh, thank you, Peter, for the opportunity to share this with your beautiful people. So the first one is a live event, which I've started doing since COVID completed. And this one's called Abundant You Love. And it's literally all about how can you create that energetic, emotional, spiritual, physical connection between you and your beloved, or you and a previous or future partner. So this is being held in the UK, in Liverpool. And I have many of my beautiful people flying over from across the pond for this event on the 16th of January. So there's a standard ticket and a VIP ticket. That's all available on my website. And then I also have something called Quantum Minds. So I've really expanded into the world of energy healing and energetics. And this is a 6 months journey with me. For those of you who are at a crossroads in your life, that are at a real pivotal moment, and you want to catapult through the quantum and really accelerate your life in no time at all. And that's a 6 month online. You actually get me. So it's a group session. You get group healing. You get one-to-one coaching. It's beautiful. It's a small bespoke group. So that's happening.
Fantastic. And just to be clear, the Abundant You, is that for men and women and or couples, all of the above?
All of the above, single, men, women, couples.
Okay.
I've actually got I just have to tell you about the place it's been held. Just, if I may, I'm so excited about it. It's a hotel called Hope Street Hotel. It's a bespoke boutique hotel. They took me into this room, Peter, and I kid you not, it was an old schoolhouse, and it's got like oak beams, and they've created this cinema room with, if you can imagine, plush velvet sofas in teal. So there's these love sofas. It's just like, I'm so excited about this whole magic.
It sounds beautiful. For those that may not know Dimple as well as I do, the elegance that you bring, just go to your website. I mean, your website is a beautiful reflection of the attention to detail and the elegance and the sophistication that you're bringing to create the environment for healing and inspiration, because there's a lot of programs that are out there, but it's not as well thought through, I don't think, is what you're bringing. I do want to acknowledge you really quick before we end this officially. We got together once not too long ago, and my father was there. And he had been working through some stuff, and he had asked you a question. And I just watched you in that crowded room where everybody was talking. There's a lot of distractions. You brought such a level of presence and love that, like, I don't think he had really felt in a while. And it was palpable. You literally could feel the energetic shift around you. And this isn't to, blow smoke up anywhere, but it's just to simply acknowledge the work that you're doing, the groundedness, but from a feminine energy. Typically we think of groundedness as masculine, but a realness and a presence that you brought that was so healing. Like, I literally could feel, even though you're talking to my father, I could feel it. So anybody that's interested in Dimple's work, I can't recommend it enough, because you've done the work. You're leading with love and vulnerability. It's a beautiful thing. So anybody that's thinking about it, she has my highest recommendations.
Peter, thank you. It was a privilege and honor to spend that time with your father. It really, really, like, I hold men to the highest honor and privilege. So thank you.
We felt it. And thank you. And thank you for this invigorating conversation once again. Until the next time, thank you so much, Dimple.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wired for Impact. If you're interested in creating and expanding your impact, be sure to visit us online at impactnow.com.